Cool. Let's get ready for another shoot off wrap. This time, kind of improvising this one, doing it much later than normally I would like, but that's when it was possible. Really not sure whether anyone is going to join this one live. I didn't promote it, but yeah, really, it's been a tough week and quite late at night here in Switzerland. But hey, let's get started with this. I'll just start recording on Audacity while we go to the podcast feed. And soon I'll give my impressions on European Outdoor Championships that finished on Sunday in Turkey. Okay, now recording on Audacity and let's get going. Cool. Well, hello and welcome to another shoot off wrap. This time, bringing all the action and my takes on what happened at the European Outdoor Championships that finished a couple of days ago in Antalya, Turkey. I'm doing this later than I would have liked, but the last couple of days were pretty hectic. And so this is when I'm managing to do this. I'm recording this on the 28th of May, or better yet, 29th of May. It's quite a late night here, but just saying that the European Outdoor Championships finished a couple of days ago on the 24th of May. Um, it concluded the first of the major continental tournaments that we are having this year. And you might be wondering, what is the importance of that? And I will tell you right now, which is the fact that the race to the Olympic Games is on with these continental tournaments. And I will explain to that in just a moment. The continental tournaments, such as the European Championships or the Pan American Championships, to mention one example closer from home, are the first opportunity to qualify for the Continental Games. And so think of the Continental Games, such as the Pan American Games or the European Games, as a kind of mini Olympics. And there was a lot of prestige and atmosphere and the whole vibe is out of this world. It's really one of the most marking experiences I have as an athlete is taking part in the Pan American Games and winning a medal, especially in 2015. But besides that, starting in the cycle for Tokyo 2020, World Archery is started giving Olympic quotas at the Continental Games, and more recently, starting on the cycle for Paris 2024, giving team quotas for the Continental Championships just before the games. But now we are 2 years away from the Olympics. So these continental tournaments, they are only awarding quotas for the Continental Games, which in turn have the first quotas for the Olympics. Hopefully, this wasn't too confusing. But here comes the importance then of these tournaments, because then in the European Championships, we already had the first quotas for the European Games, which will take place in Istanbul in Turkey next year in 2027. So that being said, this lays kind of the backdrop and the whole importance of this event. And of course, we're not even mentioning the bragging rights of calling yourself European champion, which is in itself huge, especially given that the European tournament is one of the toughest continental tournaments in the world. And then just to mention too that in the European Games, there will be quotas for the winning mixed team. So one man, one woman in the recurve. The same goes for compound. So one man, one woman there too. And the top two individual athletes, both men and women. So in total, that makes it 6 quotas up for grabs in Istanbul next year. So everyone with eyes on that. But to be there, first you need to qualify. which happened just last week in Antalya, Turkey. Interesting thing to note is that Antalya is one of the most common and one of the most repeated destinations in the archery circuit. I was just looking back through my memory, and I have counted that I have been there 6 times in my archery career to compete. And I lived quite far in Brazil. And so it made for a huge trip for us to go there. So we went only for the World Cups or eventual World Championships. Now imagine the archers in Europe who go there for training camps, for European Championships, other open world ranking tournaments. So I know archers who have been to Antalya maybe 20 times or more. It is really a destination we all know so well, and we know the field so well. So I like to compare it to kind of Barcelona in Formula One, which is kind of this training ground, but also a race. And it is a significant race because basically everyone knows it so well. So it really represents very well the backing order. Of course, we can't draw the same parallels between Formula One and archery and target archery, but still. If you know me, you know that I love Formula One and motorsports, and I just really wanted to bring this parallel. Okay, with all of that being said, then let's start with the highlights of the competition. The first one on Saturday morning in the compound Saturday, it had to be the Dutch compound women. They won gold in the team competition, which I have to say, for me at least, it comes as a bit of a surprise. They beat Italy in the shoot off, the team made by Sandelat, one of the veterans of the team and a very accomplished archer. Very young Fenna Stalin, only 15 years old, and Jesse van den Munkhoff. Very amazing result for the three compounders from the Netherlands. And I will mention the Netherlands once more when we're speaking about the mixed team. First up in the mixed team, the bronze medal match was something that maybe it was the first time that I've seen it in a broadcast like this. A compound mixed team between match in this case between Denmark and Türkiye with Matthias Fullerton, Tanya Galantine for Denmark, and Emir Canhane and Hazal Burun from Turkey. Now, what I was saying was the first time is both the teams shooting absolutely perfect score in the regulation ends. So across the four ends, a total of 16 arrows for each team, all but tens. And conditions looked really good over there in Antalya, but still, this is so impressive. No one dropping a single point, especially as we come closer to the end of the match, where pressure is just mounting, mounting, mounting. And it was a perfect score all throughout, 160 to 160. We go to a shoot off. The two women, funnily enough, shooting first, Tanya Galantine drops a nine. And you think, oh my God, this is over. She dropped a point. No one has shot anything but tens in this match, so this is over. And then Hazal Burun comes onto the shooting line for Turkey and shoots an eight. So yeah, that was quite bad for Turkey. Matthias Fullerton for Denmark comes and shoots a 10 that already puts it out of reach. And so they were the bronze medalists, and Emir Canhane just with a symbolic arrow in the end shoots a 10 as well, but then that was bronze for Denmark. Moving on to gold, you would expect that the match that I've just described would be the one for gold, but it was actually for bronze. And so, gold, we had the Netherlands against the Great Britain and the Dutch pairing of Mike Schlosser and Sandelat, who I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago. They came out on top, beating the Great Britain pair of Ella Gibson and AJ Scott in a perfect shoot off. The Dutch pair shooting a perfect 20 in a nail biting match, taking gold then. What I wanted to mention about the compound mixed team is because, of course, until LA, all we're going to say every time we're talking about the compound mixed team is Olympics, because in LA28, compound is going to be there for the very first time in the Olympic program, only with the mixed team. So all attention is on this event. And in Europe, the competition is fierce. All of these teams that I mentioned, Denmark, Turkey, Netherlands, Great Britain, they are amazing. And there are still other teams that are out of this list, out of these finals that we saw on Saturday. To mention a few, we have Italy, we have Estonia, very good performing teams in other tournaments, and so the competition is absolutely tight. And we have all the other mixed teams from around the world as well, and the level is so high. So this is going to be super exciting to follow in the build up to the games and in the games themselves. Moving on to the compound individual, a couple of interesting people to note, especially people looking forward, looking ahead, some of like exciting new talent coming through, I would say. And the very first one is from Denmark as well, Sophie Louise Dam Markusen. She is 23 years old, I think, and we first saw her last year in the World Games when she paired with Matthias Fullerton, and they won gold. But the impressive thing about Sophie Louise was how cool she seemed, because that was her first major international tournament, and she's shooting for medals with Matthias Fullerton, like one of the best in the world at the moment across all categories. And she just seemed like she was home, like she was very comfortable, she was taking things very calmly, and that was very interesting to watch. This time she had a good start against Ella Gibson in the bronze individually, but just the fact that she made it to the bronze medal final is already worthy of mention. And in the end she lost to Ella Gibson, but still I would consider Sophie Louise Dam Markusen from Denmark one to watch in the upcoming years. Then in the gold medal final, it was Hazal Burun from Turkey and Tanya Galantine. I've just mentioned them in the compound mixed team. Tanya Galantine, who didn't get her bow in the beginning of the tournament, she even had to start the competition shooting someone else's kit. In this case, it was Sandalat. So this is incredibly hard because I say whenever people ask me that your archery equipment is like a toothbrush. It is very personal. It is everything is adapted to you, to your shot, like the length of the arrows, um, the specification of the arrows, the bow, so many things. And I guess this is even more in compound. But despite this, Tanya Galantine, she managed to qualify well. And I don't know exactly when she got her bow back, but just the fact that she had this to start her week in Antalya and still make it to the gold medal final is so impressive. They fought until the very end, but then it was Hazal Burun in the very last end, edging Tina Galantine by a single point, and she becomes the first Turkish woman to win the European title in compound. So history making for young Burun. We move on to Compound Man, and I was mentioning a couple of people that we should pay attention going ahead and looking to the future. And another one is young Simon Moritz, or Moritz, from Germany. Only 17 years old. He won the under 18 World Championships last year in Winnipeg, Canada. I was there at the occasion. And at the beginning of the month, he beat the under 18 world record for, or under 21 world record for match play, shooting 150 points with 11 axes in a local competition in Germany. So just this just gives you an idea of the caliber of this young archer. And well, he was shooting in the bronze medal match against Mike Schlosser, nickname Mr. Perfect from the Netherlands. And so young Moritz, he couldn't really hold Mike Schlosser, especially with the Dutchman shooting a perfect 150. But still, huge accomplishment by him just to make it into the bronze medal match of the European Championships, being so young and yeah, just way less experienced than so many of the competitors he was beating. So hats off to him, and he is one to watch in the coming years. The gold medal final, then, it was between Emircan Haney from Turkey, someone we have seen many times before in other important medal matches, but he was facing a dude from Poland, and pardon for my attempt to pronounce his name. My attempt is going to be Predimslav Konecki. So forget his first name. I'm only going to be calling him by his surname. But I have to admit that first I looked at him and I was like, what the heck? A guy like this making into the gold medal match of the European Championships, and I thought he was a kind of a no one. But then I went to look at his results, and he has some good results in other competitions, and even winning the World Championships by team in Berlin 23, like Poland winning that. That's gotta say, that's a point a little out of the curve, but still. But anyway, so just given that he is a much better archer than I initially thought he would be, he actually gave Emir Khan Haney a run for his money. And I'm going to be honest with you, this was his to lose. I mean, um, starting the match, we would think that it was Emir Khan Haney's matches to lose. But then as it started, uh, Konechki, the Polish, he was shooting so much better. And Hane was clearly struggling. Like we could see him even flinching a little bit just before the shot. So that was a little bit painful to watch. He was clearly struggling. But then in the very end, we could see that Konechki, he was struggling, and so his shot was looking like a crispier and more tense, and you could really see that, like on his mind, he was really struggling to cope with the pressure of like, oh my God, I'm gonna be European champion, beating Hane from Turkey, who's like one of the best right now. So it was kind of clear to see, it was very visual to see him struggling as the match was coming to the end. And so he came to his final arrow with a 10 to win. He shot a 9, which gave Hane just, an extra breath and to try and fight for this gold medal. And they come to the shoot off. Hane, having ranked higher, shoots first, and he shot a 10 on the line. And in compound, this is like there is loads of room for improvement. And so it feels like the goal is just wide open for Konetsky to just come and then take his title. But then he shoots a 9. And oh, that was painful to watch. So that one really slipped the Polish man's hands, and yeah, too bad for him. Still, silver medal, runner up, amazing feat, but you can't help but feel for him. That is done with a compound Saturday. We go to recurve Sunday. One of the highlights I have to say is Belarus lost to Germany in the gold medal final of the women's team. Belarus has very recently been allowed by World Archery to be back to World Archery sanctioned events following a directive from the International Olympic Committee. So we haven't seen anything from the Belarusians all these years, ever since the conflict started in Ukraine in 22, but now they're back. And Belarus, we have to say, they lost to Germany, funny coincidence, in the bronze medal match in Tokyo 2020 that happened in 21. And so, very impressive to see them being away from competitions or world competitions for such a long time, and they come back, and it seems right where they left it. Very, very impressive. They lost to Germany, but amazing result. And they even had two archers in the team who were in the Tokyo lineup back in 21. Now, the men's team, man, this was crazy. Germany facing Spain for the gold medal. Um, it seemed like Spain, they had everything to win it, but then they conceded the shoot off to Germany. They come into the shoot off. Germany starts strong with a 10. I think Spain started with a 10 as well. But then Matthias Kramer for Germany shoots the second arrow. He shoots a 6 to the right. And you think, like, okay, this is over. The guy walks out of the shooting line looking downbeat, just thinking, like, oh my God, I F it up for my teammates here, and we lost it because of me. Then Spain shoots an 8. So you're thinking, like, oh my God, there's still hope. And then Jonathan Vetter from Germany shoots the last arrow. And I don't know from where he got the motivation for that, but he shoots a 10. And so you're thinking, okay, well, maybe Germany are still alive in this, but then they still need Spain to make another mistake. And Pablo Acha from Spain does just that. He shoots a 6. So two sixes in a team shoot off. This is incredibly Like, what are the odds of this happening? But it did. And so Germany having two gold medals in the team event in recurve. Crazy. Mixed team, well, Spain then came for redemption with Elia Canales and Andres Temino Mediel. They are, in fact, the mixed team that is the reigning world champions. And they shot superb in the bronze medal match, beating Turkey, the home favorites on their home turf. Or, no, pardon me, Spain beat Germany. Like, I'm sorry about that. Actually, Turkey, they they didn't even acknowledge France in the gold medal final. Like, really, Elif Gokir, Mete Gaza seeming so at ease. And I have to mention that on Sunday, clearly the wind was much trickier than the day before with the compounds. And so, really, in this match between Turkey and France for gold, we could see a big difference in the Turks managing to just navigate the conditions so much better than the French. And I dare say that this comes down also to another factor, which is that the Turkish athletes, they go through a pretty Spartan training. They do so much weights training. They shoot crazy amounts of arrows. And so, from what I hear, they have quite high poundage, quite heavy bows. But not only that, because just that in itself is a very common mistake that archers think that I can just, crank up my bow, have lots of pounds and lots of weight on the stabilizers, and I can shoot well. But then you have to master your bow. You have to be able to handle it, especially in pressure situations. And so, all the training that the Turkish do makes them able to handle their bows in exactly these conditions. And I think that the gold medal match in the mixed team just, yeah, showed this very clearly. Going on to the individual, then, it was very nice to see Elisabeth Straka from Austria making it to the bronze medal match against Elif Gokir from Turkey. Now, Elizabeth was ahead, and at a couple of moments, it seemed like she really had everything to get this bronze medal. Um, it was very cool and inspiring to see in the breaks between the sets. Göktürk Ergin, the head coach of the Turkish team, and the guy who is kind of the mastermind behind all of this Turkish success and just the Turkish spearheading some amazing results in the world scene. He was speaking to Elif Gokir, and you could see that it was like a very strong talk. He was kind of pushing her and motivating her, and it worked. Elif Gokir got her stuff together, and she managed to make an impressive comeback in this. The wind was very challenging, and in the end, it was a shoot off with the Turkish girl because she's 19, if I'm not mistaken. She's super young, and beating Elisabeth Straka from Austria to get bronze at the very end. I'm pretty sure both of them met in the European qualifier for Paris 24. And that was the first time that we saw Elif Gokir with a very strong result. And it was another strong result by Elisabeth Straka. It wasn't her first, but it was the first time I saw her shooting properly in a competition in high level like that. She came to the World Archery Excellence Center a couple of months ago and managed to speak a couple of words to her. Very nice girl, very intelligent, and very hardworking too. I was very happy to see her there shooting for a medal. Felt a bit gutted for the fact that she didn't win, but hats off to her anyway. Then the women's recurve individual title, the gold between Nureniso Mahmudova, yeah, Nureniso Mahmudova from Russia, but under the flag or under the team of the individual neutral athletes, and Elia Canales from Spain. The individual neutral athletes, let's say, is, well, it was a kind of denomination or a kind of team that it wasn't created for the Russians, but it came, especially in the recent years, it has become more synonymous with the Russian delegation, especially after the conflict started in Ukraine. As far as I know, only Russian athletes that have no link with the Russian military or who haven't openly supported the conflict in Ukraine are allowed to take part in this team and to compete in world competitions. And this is an important thing to say because lots of the very strong archers from Russia that we saw in the years prior to the conflict in Ukraine, they were in the Russian military. So all of those people, they're already ruled out. They cannot compete in the World Archery events. And so the other athletes that we're seeing now, for example, as Nuriniso Mahmudova, they do not have any kind of relationship with the Russian military. Anyway, after this long introduction for the Russian, she shot against Elia Canales from Spain, and we had the Russian Mahmudova winning 6-4. She won the European Indoor Championships earlier this year. We also saw her shooting some open world ranking events last year. So, very good archer, great quality. Her release is something that I find a bit unusual, as it is the case with some of the Russian athletes in terms of technique. But yeah, just her hand coming very far when she releases that arrow. But anyway, it works for her. And I have to say that we had the images of the podium right after the match, and Elia Canales was crying. And I dare say, I'm making a supposition here, that is because for the third time, she comes runner up in a European major tournament. So this is the second time that she loses the European championships. And the other time also she lost in the European games. So it's got to hurt to come this close so many times. It is an amazing result, and you have to be at such a high level. You got to be so consistent to be on the podium so many times at a continental level like this. But still, coming so close to gold and losing it for the third time is, yeah, it's got to be tough. Very last events then of the tournament and of the week, the recurve men individual bronze medal match between two young, amazing athletes, Mete Gazos from Turkey, Baptiste Adis from France. But this one wasn't too exciting. Just Baptiste shooting amazing as he always does, but just lacking that tiny little bit extra of precision. He was just shooting too many 28s, while Mete Gazos with too many 29s. And so it was quite a straightforward 6-2 victory for the Turk, taking another medal in his home ground. But I have to say, and I'm biased for saying this, but for me, we had the best for last, and it was the title decider between Willem Bakker from the Netherlands against Mauro Nespoli from Italy. Willem is a guy that I dare say I know him quite well, especially after I moved to Europe, and he has come several times to the World Archery Excellence Center. I have competed against him in one of the lowlands stages in the Netherlands when we even traveled to the Veronica's Cup in Slovenia together. It was my very last competition as a full time archer, as a professional archer. So we shared that moment. And ever since I met him, Willem, he has been such a hard-working guy and doing his own thing, kind of apart from the Dutch team. And so to really see him fighting all odds, just following his dream, trying to make it happen, and seeing his growth, he won the European Field Championships like 2 or 3 years ago. And then he won bronze at the World Games last year, which for recurve is a field event as well. So he had this quite a strong focus on the field discipline, but he has been over the last years focusing more and more on target, and it's been paying off. So, saying all of this, because Willem, he managed to shoot very strong against Mauro Nespoli, who's a guy who doesn't need lots of introduction because he has just won so many things over so many years. And so Willem making it to the final was a kind of a surprise, and he beat Baptista Diz in the semifinal after a strong qualification. So you would think that, game on against Mauro Nespoli. Um, but then Willem, he just managed all throughout the match to deliver the crucial arrows when they were needed. And so they come. It was 4-2, and Mauro started with a 9, I think, Willem with 10. And then in the second arrow, they just switch. And so it is all equal for them, both with 19 points. Mauro's last arrow is a 9. And so for Willem, it means that a 9 ties the set. They go 5-3. Or if he shoots a 10, it is 6-2 over. And I know from my own experience that these arrows where you can just wrap up the match, they can be so tough, especially if you're thinking about the end result. And Willem just did it. He nailed it, shooting a 10 to win it 6-2, like in fourth sets against a guy of the caliber of Mauro Nespoli. That is so impressive. And so his celebration was, yeah, he was jumping, kind of like he didn't know what to do to celebrate this moment. And that was so amazing. And just to put a finishing point on this, I thought it was very he put it very well, the commentator of the broadcast. It was Ollie Hogben, a great guy, by the way. I've done commentary with him for a competition once. And he put it perfectly in the end when they were announcing and just broadcasting the podium. And he was saying, like, imagine Willem Bakker. He looks to one side and he sees Mauro Nespoli. He looks to the other side and he sees Mete Gazos. And he's thinking, am I really here in between these guys? Like, I won this competition, and who is in the podium with me? Like these guys? Like, come on, this is amazing. And I think, yeah, that really summarizes the whole vibe of the thing. And we were speaking about other athletes that I think are worth watching going ahead, and I'll say that Willem Bakker is definitely one of them. Well, everyone, this then concludes our wrap for the European Outdoor Championships. I leave the invitation once again to join the podcast's league on Fantasy Archery. And I did very well on this stage of the Fantasy Archery League. I'm just struggling to bring it again, but I think I finished 21st in the general ranking for this event, and I went up 23 places in the general stats of the season. So I'm very happy with that. And of course, you are invited to join me there to play it with everyone else, play it with your friends, and why not join the Shoot Off Archery Podcasts League there. In the description, there is the invite code if you need that. Well, the last couple of weeks have been hectic and I haven't been able to release new interview episodes, but this week I recorded a interview with Alejandra Valencia from Mexico, and I'm very much looking forward to releasing that one, but I have two others in line to release before, and I'll try my best to release one of these episodes that I have recorded next week already, the one with Lucy O'Sullivan. But well, for me, it is all for the moment in this very late night here in Switzerland. Thank you very much for your company. I hope you like the format of the Shoot Off Wrap. This is something I'm still experimenting with, but let's see how things go moving ahead. Thank you once again for your company. Wishing you all the best. I'm Bernardo Oliveira. This is the Shoot Off Archery Podcast. I'll see you very soon. Thank you.